So I guess we'll just start with like me kind of getting back into drawing a bit again. So drawing is a hobby that I had fell off of for an extended period of time for a while, and we're talking years. And I say that as though it was something that was ever extremely serious in my life, and it wasn't. It was always something that I thought was fun. I enjoy art, right? Like, especially like anime and manga. I love the expressiveness of the characters, the uniqueness, how dynamic a lot of the posing, and just how it's just so flamboyant and over the top. And that was something that I've always really appreciated and enjoyed about it, right? So I've wanted to be able to illustrate like some of my favorite creators and artists, and that was kind of the major motivation behind drawing in the past, right? So as a kid, I used to draw quite a bit, just sketching stuff that I enjoyed, usually a lot of Dragon Ball Z characters. I wish I had like a sketchbook or a collage or something of all the Dragon Ball Z characters that I've drawn over the years. That thing would be absolutely full of spiky hair and like hot dog looking muscles, and just it would be a mess. It would be complete amateur deviant art tier, but we all got to start somewhere, right? And I enjoyed it and I loved it. So as like a small kid, we're talking, I would draw here and there. And then getting older, I would too, you know, and it's something that's been in my life, but it was just so sporadic. And recently, I really think what kind of rekindled my love, or what got me into wanting to investing in the drawing more seriously or taking more time with it, was reading Bakuman. Now, for those not familiar, Bakuman is pretty meta. It's a manga about creating manga, about the manga industry and everything that goes into creating original characters, how popularity and continued series that go into Jump and other things work. It's actually super interesting. And it follows these two characters. One is a upcoming manga artist, and the other one, it comes up with the ideas, right? And the ideas guy, the story guy, the writer, decides that he needs an illustrator to kind of help bring his ideas to life. So he meets this guy that he goes to school with. He sees his doodles in his notebook one day and thinks that, yeah, this is the guy that I need to help me bring my ideas to life. And the story sort of takes off from there, right? And watching and reading, right, those two characters, and seeing just that progression of art, right, from the person going from like an amateur, and he's fairly talented, right? Like even his early drawings, they're definitely, you wouldn't call them like manga ready art or anything, but he's clearly got some artistic talent. But watching him try to develop and create something and just kind of leave a legacy and a mark and doing something that he loves was like, man, I really do love manga, right? Where like my whole channel, at least this channel, right, is completely dedicated to my love of manga as an artistic medium. We're talking the characters, the storylines, and just reviewing and analyzing many aspects of it. And it just reading about that, right, made me want to get back into the drawing piece and like my love for that. So even before I started drawing as much as I have been lately, I had a sketchbook that I've been like scribbling around in for probably about a month or two now. And I just really enjoyed it. Like writing in that sketchbook, it makes you feel professional, right? It gives you that that aesthetic of being an artist, right? Like that starving artist vibe, just sitting here. Yeah, in my free time, I'm going to make it. I'm going to get this sketchbook and just... But honestly, I have no real expectations of that, man. It's fun, you know, and I like seeing myself get better. And I also have been fun trying to make the things that I make. And right now I've been focusing on doing just redraws and trying to come up with like dynamic posing and just learning about like using proper references and combining references with my own ideas. And just it's a lot, man. As someone who's also into music and has pursued a number of kind of just a lot of artistic outlets over the course of my life, I've learned that when you decide to dive into something, you really start to understand how deep the pool is. On the surface, I don't think you ever really have a full understanding of the scope of the undertaking you're about to go on until you actually like just jump in and try giving it a shot. And that's very much what it's been with drawing, right? Like, there's just so many different directions you can go, from forming your own art style and like what that means, and figuring out what you like what works for you, what feels natural, but not just only doing what feels natural because you want to develop yourself as an artist. Learning about anatomy and proportion. That's something that has been absolutely just it's amazing, but it's brutal. It seems basic on the surface, right? Where you're thinking of proportion, and well, like, of course, like, humans are like fairly symmetrical. Like, we know, we see humans every day. We know how we're supposed to look, right? But then you begin to draw and try to bring that to life, and oh my God, it's so much different. It's amazing how difficult it is to get something to look exactly the way you want it to. I remember just struggling so much, and I still do, man. I want to make this sound like I'm past this now. Like, it's still a struggle making sure everything lines up correctly, right? That like heads aren't too massive or too small, that arms look the way they're supposed to, that they're not like bent incorrectly or they're not of the correct length. And then you end up with characters with either these long, gangly spaghetti noodle limbs, or end up with these T-Rex arms, and you're like, oh my God, what is this? And then the hands. Now, this is a cliche, right? Almost every artist I know talks a little bit about how difficult hands are to draw at first, and I've definitely learned that that's not a joke. Trying to get hands and fingers into proportion and make those look right and just complement the drawing is it's so brutal. And just like those little finer details, right? And then on top of anatomy and proportion, you're trying to figure out things like perspective, right? And how your character fits into the drawing and the setting that you're trying to create, and not making things look too weird. Like, especially like there's so much, right? Trying to get your characters to look three-dimensional and alive is something that is so difficult, and something that I have so much respect for. Upon doing more drawing and really diving into this more, is that one criticism I have of myself is that like my drawings can look flat, and it's been something that I've really been trying to work on, is like how to implement shading and other things and shadows, because you can have a fairly okay looking figure or character, but what ends up happening, right, is that if you don't use proper shading or colors and things like that, it just ends up looking 2D. And like, of course it's 2D, right? Like, I know, like, we're talking, it's on paper, but when you see a lot of your favorite artists, their paintings and their pictures look so alive, right? Like, it looks like a character that could exist and be doing whatever activity it is that the artist has them doing. And the hard part is, like, when you're starting off, is trying to get your characters, or like whatever you're making, to look dynamic. You want your characters to look like three-dimensional and to feel alive, and figuring out how to do that it's not been easy. It really hasn't. So I've been working on trying to learn a bit more about shading, and going off of that, right, like shadows, and like where shadows should lie on the character depending on where the light source is at. Just like, oh my God, it's just, and this is what I mean, right, is when you're not deep into the hobby, or like deep into the craft, there's all these little things that come up that just you don't realize are things that you should, or that need to be taken into account before you begin, but they add or they detract so much from a piece of art, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm big on the subjectivity of art. I think that something can be put together in a non-traditional way and still be absolutely beautiful and worthwhile. And some things that are like technically good can come across as lifeless and flat and boring, you know? So it's not necessarily about adhering to technical norms every time that you make something, but having an understanding of these basics and like how these rules work and how to implement them, right? Having that knowledge or having that practice can just add so much to your work. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do, right? It's like slowly learning as I go from the artists that I enjoy, the artists that I kind of admire and everything, taking a look at their works and figuring out like, okay, what do they do to make this pop? Is it the facial expression? Is it the pose that they have? Is it the perspective that they're using? Is it their color choice? And for me, I've really grown to love grayscale, right? Like black and white. Like to me, some like black and white images can just be so beautiful. And like, not that color can't, right? Because I've seen some absolutely beautiful color pieces, but like black and white for me right now has kind of become a preference. But I'm working to challenge myself to learn more about color and like how to properly color things, because that's a useful skill, right? And something that comes in handy. And going back about how big the mountain is, thinking about color theory, right? Like something that, once again, just coming from an amateur perspective, like with somebody with no real significant art background, never been art school or never really been educated on the subject, learning about like art theory, what colors work and do not work together, how to implement that, how to make your colors pop instead of looking flat, learning about like half tones and shadows, and there's so much to take in. My brain can only take in so much at a time. So like I'm just slowly trying to progress and figure out, like every time I draw something, what I can do better than I did the last time. And it's a journey. It is. Oh my goodness, is it a journey? It's been a fun one though. I'm enjoying it. And the thing that really, like, I kind of committed, right? Because before I had like my sketchbooks and I put money into like pens and the sketchbooks and other stuff, and not saying that's cheap whatsoever, but I wanted to give digital art a try, right? So I did a lot of research on what might be the best fit for me, because I knew that I wanted something portable, because my job is not at home, right? I do a lot of like traveling for work and stuff. So I wanted something that I knew that I could carry with me and take places, so I could practice drawing and not need a full stationary setup, because that's just not good for my lifestyle right now, right? So I was looking at like the different Wacom tablets, Wacom, however they're pronounced, and just like going off of like what is the current standard and like what's good and what works. People talk so much about iPads and Procreate, and that was something that I looked into for a little bit. I'm not big on the Apple ecosystem, man. Just like I got a bias there. I'm very much into Android. That's like where all my technology and accounts and stuff are. And like I got really close to looking into the iPad, even though they're expensive as hell, man. My God, even years old iPads are still like, you're still going to be dropping some cash money on those. It blew my mind, but that's besides the point. I'm not big on the Apple ecosystem. Even though like hearing everybody talk, they were like, nah, bro, for digital art and portability, this is the way to go. Like I almost fully drunk the Kool-Aid, but I continued with my research, right? And I decided that I need something that's a standalone screen that I don't have to hook into another PC in order to make it work. And I want something with like a decent stylus / S Pen that I can just bust out and draw and kind of give me that feeling of like writing on a sketch pad. So I ended up going with the Galaxy Tab S8 Plus, and I am loving this thing. And really the main selling point that made me get it was the display. It is a is it 120 or 144 hertz display? See, that's a shame, bro. I got this and I don't even remember, but it has a high frame rate display. And to me, like, that was the main thing that I wanted with drawing. I wanted like no lag, right? I wanted it to low key feel like I was just writing on a piece of paper, even though, like, I know it's glass, right? You're never going to get that exact feeling, but I wanted something that could kind of mimic that wasn't going to be like choppy or have a bunch of delay. And I am loving the Galaxy Tab S8 Plus for that. It's been amazing. So far, actually, I haven't really used it for much else. It's been a dedicated drawing device, even though, like, I'm a huge nerd when it comes to like emulation and multimedia and that kind of stuff. So I'm sure there'll come a point where I experiment with it in that regard. But maybe I won't, man. Maybe I'll just keep it a dedicated drawing device. But I can see that thing being a beast with its display and the specs. Like, that thing can do so much, and I'm excited to learn and play with it more. And as far as the software I've been using Infinite Painter, and like, this is the only digital art studio that I've ever used. And for me, I love this thing, man. There's so many options as far as like brushes and cropping and different colors and just all the features you can do. Pretty much anything I can think of that I would want to do when it comes to working on something, I can do with Infinite Painter. And so I don't plan on looking elsewhere anytime soon, man. I love it. My main issue right now is like user error. Like, sometimes when I'm drawing, I'm accidentally hitting like the home and back buttons and like all this other goofy stuff. So I gotta set up my tablet more properly so I'm not having all these user errors everywhere and that kind of thing. But so far, from like a technical standpoint, I'm loving it. I love the Galaxy Pen. To me, that this thing is either superior or it has to be just as good as an iPad. And like, look at me, I haven't even used the iPad. I'm sitting here saying that, but between the specs, the buttery smooth screen, and that Android pen that you get, this thing, dude, it's good. It's a good piece of equipment. Cost a good piece of equipment money too. To be honest, it was an investment, but not as expensive as iPad. That's facts. That was not as expensive as an iPad. So like, even though it hurt, it didn't hurt as much. And it was something that I decided, you know what, this is an investment, right? Like, if I'm really serious about trying to focus more on art and this is what I want to do, then I'd want the equipment and the resources to be able to do that. And that Galaxy Tab S8 Plus has been providing me with that. So I'm excited, man. Definitely, if you guys draw, kind of tell me what equipment you use or what you prefer. Like, I'm always looking to learn more and everything, and I still have plenty to learn. So I would absolutely enjoy hearing from you guys about what you have to say in regards to like any of this stuff. But so far, that's kind of been the main thing, is like, I'm starting off as like a beginner dude, just not really drawing too much in years, never having a serious art background, but just a person that loves good illustration, anime, manga, but not even just that, man, just like graphic novels, comics, paintings, anything where there's good artwork to be seen. I want to admire it and learn from it, you know. So it's not strictly just like Eastern cartoon and comic media, but I would definitely say that just aesthetically, like, that's where a lot of my sensibilities are, for being real. I really like a lot of that artwork. And as you guys can see, we're messing around with the Ichiro Miyata over here, the Hajime no Ippo godlike series. And I feel like this is going to be a series that I come back to a great deal as I'm learning and drawing, because of how dynamic the posing of the characters in Ippo is, and just some of the amazing screenshots. Like, I love fighting, right? That sounds terrible, but like, I love fighting games. I used to love watching Pride and just like mixed martial arts, and just like seeing that. It's not that I like seeing people get hurt or even beat the hell out of each other. It's more of the artistic and aesthetic beauty of martial arts. Like, martial arts are so beautiful to me, man. And people that have dedicated their time and their body into learning these different movements and like gaining the flexibility that they have, and just seeing what they can do and watching it in motion. Just like, it doesn't even have to be fights, right? Like, I just like watching martial arts practice and katas, and just watching people throw proper kicks and punches with like good form and stuff like that. Like, there's just something that's so aesthetically satisfying and pleasing to me in regards to that. And like, that's one of the main motivations for my art, is like capturing those moments on paper, on pen, on screen, right? Just, those are the things that inspire me. I like it, man. I like struggle. I guess I like striving, or the improvement, or just like the dedication and the beauty that comes with somebody that is like putting up a fight or has mastered their martial arts, or like capturing those moments of people going against an obstacle and doing everything that they can to fight against it. That sounds really esoteric, right? But in my head, it makes sense. In my head, I know what I'm talking about. It's just something that is so beautiful about that to me. And Hajime no Ippo has that in spades. Watching Ippo grow from this bullied mess of a kid into such a competent boxer and just an upstanding young man, right? And just watching the different fights and how dedicated he becomes to boxing, how much he learns, how much better he gets, watching the different forms and techniques of the fighters, and just watching the interesting ways that the fights play out, and just the over-the-top nature of the hits and the blocks and the movement. It's just all so good. Ippo has so much of what I love artistically and entertainment wise that it's no wonder it's one of my favorite series. And it's gonna be no wonder, right, when I come back to it quite a bit to try to learn and recreate these characters, and maybe create my own characters in that same vein. So love Hajime no Ippo. And then Miyata over here, man, the art by, oh my gosh, his name is eluding me. I put the links up though for the original artist that inspired this redraw, but seeing his original image of Miyata, oh my gosh, bro, I was just looking at him like, this is the kind of stuff I want to make. And I just like the way that he shaded like the musculature, and just, it was just his drawing was so good. And like, when I saw it, I was like, I want to try to make this. And mine is nowhere near as good, man. It's not, but I can't say I'm dissatisfied with what I made, but it's just, like, one day I want to get on his level. Like, he's so good, dude. Just so good. And just seeing artists like that inspire me, man. Just looking at what they're able to capture, the intensity of his original picture, just that stuff that I was talking about earlier, about what I love about like martial arts, boxing, and that kind of stuff. He captured the essence of that in this original picture, and like, that's what made me want to do a redraw, right? That's what made me want to try to create it myself in my own kind of style, or just my own way, and just see what I could do. And I love seeing that, man. Like, I love coming across pictures and images that hit me, that really capture something. Like, it's hard to describe, inspiration. I think artistic inspiration especially is very much like that, where sometimes you just come across a thing in life that just makes you go, I need to do something. Like, either you need to recreate it, or you need to put this moment down on paper or pencil, or you need to do something. But whatever it was that you just saw just motivated you in some sincere way, and now you need to act. And I think, kind of going into the philosophy a bit, but like, this is why I think life experience is so significant when it comes to being an artist or involving yourself in an artistic endeavor. Because I think when you are an active part of life, right, when you're an active participant in life, and you have unique things going on, and you're trying out new stuff, that's where inspiration comes from. That going out into the world and experiencing and trying new things are where you come up with come up with your work. That's where you find your inspiration. That's where things start to come together. And that's what I try to be open to new stuff, right? Where like, I feel like I'm a relatively introverted person, but I think that having jobs or like hobbies or just being around people that challenge me in some way to make me kind of get out of my shell, get out of my comfort zone, and being able to experience that, I think that's helpful in becoming not only like a better overall person, but helping your art as well. And this can go from like content creation even, right? Being able to create like new YouTube videos or just being a musician. I think life experience is what breeds the artistic process, and we need that in order to create anything worthwhile. So I appreciate you guys sitting here allowing me to ramble. I'll get ready to jump off of here. Please enjoy the rest of the vid. I hope that you give me some feedback on the drawing, right? Like that. I hope you enjoy just kind of sitting here chilling with me. Let me know where you're at in your own artistic journey. If you like art, if you're just like a fan of like manga and illustration, and I'll be talking to you guys soon here in the next video. Take it easy.